Hey everybody, welcome back to PowerProfitsUniversity.com. My name is Dan, I'm the Dean of Power Profits University, and today we're going to talk about financing versus flipping. A lot of investors get a hold of me and they say, hey Dan, I want to get involved in the rehab, I want to get involved in financing, or I want to get involved in any number of opportunities that are offered through real estate. And I have to say, slow down. Do you know what it is you're hoping to achieve? Do you know what it is you're going to invest? Do you know what it is you're willing to invest in order to reach your outcome? So for this, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So number one, what is your skill set? Do you know what it takes to rehab a house? Everybody knows that we need to have some paint, we need to have some carpet, we need to have this, that, and the other thing. But there's a long way between knowing and achieving. There's a long way between working with contractors and just knowing what needs to be done. It can be at times a very grueling process, and it takes time and it certainly takes money. So the question that I have to ask you is, if you want to be involved in real estate, do you want to be a hands-on type investor or do you want to be passive? Most people think that passive investing involves just basically buying a house and stepping away from it and then the money will come. Well, I'm here to tell you that just does not work. Rarely does that work, except for in one instance, and that would be partnerships. Generally, what a lot of people do is they get involved and they do everything wrong, and then they back up a step and they say, okay, well, I don't ever want to do that again. So they start to reinvent their program and they start to learn. They go through what we call the school of hard knocks. And that can be a good way, but who really wants to pay for that kind of an education when there's better ways to do it? So let's talk a little bit about the passive approach. If you want to get involved in real estate, if you want to get those returns of 10, 15, maybe even 20% return on your money, but you don't want to deal with tenants, you don't want to be plunging toilets at 2 o'clock in the morning, you don't want to be working with contractors, then you need to find an investor who's knowledgeable and is the hands-on type and partner with them. Now, I have a lot of folks that reach out to me through YouTube and they say, Dan, can I be involved in your programs? The answer is yes, you can. If you want to contact me, feel free to contact me at the phone number here at the bottom of the video. I'm going to be willing to talk to you. Now, I don't work with absolutely every investor because of the fact that some people probably don't have realistic expectations. However, I'm always willing to talk because I like to school people. So anyway, if you want to be involved as a passive investor, now what you would do is there's a couple of ways to do that. You can partner with an investor who may say, all right, you go find the deal, I'll put up the money, and we split the profit. That's one way to do it. Or you may possibly find somebody who wants to borrow the money from you, and possibly you might charge points, or you might just make cash flow. It depends upon what your goals are. Now, typically when I work with an investor, I like to be the control person. I like to be in charge of everything, so I borrow my money. And that's the way that I do it. As an investor, I borrow my money and I pay a very good rate of return to passive investors who basically understand that when their money is put in, they're going to be guaranteed money back out, but they have no say on the color of the walls or the type of carpet or the type of tenant or just any of the things that go along with being a hands-on real estate investor. And that tends to probably make for better relationships in the long run. But you have to be able to trust that person that's running your money. They have to have a track record. Just because someone's got a deal does not mean necessarily that they know what they're doing. So enough being said on that. Now maybe possibly you want to be the hands-on type. Now I can tell you, as having been an investor that's done absolutely every facet of this business for 22 years, sometimes you start to wonder about your own sanity. You start to wonder, am I really making more money doing this than working an average job chained to a desk? I mean, don't get me wrong, the freedom to be able to come and go as you please is priceless. But there's some days when you just want to bash your head on the wall. And so you need to know what you're getting yourself into. When I first started, I used to chase lower income housing. I used to buy in what they call the hood. I used to buy cheap houses because that's all I could afford. I would deal with low rent tenants who would tear my places up, and just makes my life a living hell. And I did what I said. I backed up, I took a step, I said, I don't want to do this ever again. So I started to ask myself, what is it I want? Well, the answer to me was I don't want to be plunging toilets at 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to be working with nasty tenants who have no respect for my property. So that led me to selling on contract. Contract buyers, in other words, contract for deed. You may call it something different in your area, but effectively I become the banker, not the landlord. I sell someone a house. I give them a contract for deed, and these type of people fall into a far different category because they have pride of ownership. Pride of ownership goes a long, long way. I mean, they're not going to ask me to plunge toilets at 2 o'clock in the morning. They're going to mow their own lawn. They're going to care for their own thing. And they're going to treat it as if it is theirs, because effectively it is theirs. And if they get it paid off, it will be all theirs. So those are the type of people you want. And then the worst thing that you got to worry about is making sure you get your payments on time. And then it's completely as close to passive as you're ever going to get. So that's the way that I gear my stuff. Or you can do the third option, which is buy, fix, and flip. Now, that's not necessarily always the best way to go about it either, because when you buy and fix, you have just a whole host of things that can go wrong. First of all, you got to work with contractors, and I've already mentioned that earlier. Contractors can be just a massive pain in the butt. My experience, now, if you're a contractor, sorry, I'm going to say some things that might get you a little bit red ass. I'm sorry about that. It's just the truth. I've met a extraordinarily bad collection of contractors in my 22 years as a real estate investor. I'm not saying anything. I'm sure any of you who don't have some time under your belt would probably empathize with me, and you could probably swap stories all day long. But I can tell you that they are generally the handyman types, the fix-it types, the contractors, the non-licensed. See, here in Iowa, you don't have to be licensed. Like in a place like New York, perhaps you probably do, so it's a little bit different quality of people. But generally, when you work with the lower-end contractors, they're not an organized group. They may be very skilled at their trade, but as businessmen, they stink. And that has a way of getting on you and affecting your bottom line. So you have to be very, very careful who you select as your contractor. And again, you have to assign time frames to them, because time is money. I mean, if I buy this house in January, I want to get out of it by February. And depending upon how messed up it is, a typical contractor can take your money and run. Worst case scenario, he may just drag his feet. He may invent problems. He may have employee problems of his own that end up becoming your problem. So, crap runs uphill, so to speak, in that regard. So you need to be aware of that. Not only that, but when you work with contractors, you don't write them a blank check. Never, never, never write a blank check to a contractor. Don't give them money for materials. I'm here to tell you, and many investors will probably back me because they've been taken to the cleaners. I personally have not, but I tend to be a little more the suspicious type when I work with a new contractor. So if a contractor is to come in here and say, we'll paint the place for you, I'll say, great. Okay, how much paint do you think we'll need? Well, we'll need this much. And they'll say, well, if you just cut me a check, I'll go get the paint. No, sir. We don't work like that here at my company. What we do is I go get the paint and I bring it to you. So now I know at least I got the paint. So if he doesn't show up, doesn't do the work, at least I got the paint. If they steal the paint, I got a lawsuit on my hands. So anyway, my battery's dying here, so I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I just love to get this information out to new people. I love to be able to teach. So I'm going to kind of cut this short a little bit, and we'll pick up in another video here as soon as I get a recharge on my camera, and we'll talk a little bit more about what it takes to become a dollar down real estate investor. My name is Dan. I'm from PowerProfitsUniversity.com. Stop by our website at fliplikethepros.com.